Hello, everybody. Welcome back in a new episode of the Point of View. Here we are a new friend with a new researcher working with us in this alternative, how I like to call alternative research of historical world. And I'm so glad to present to you Mr. Philipp Druzhinin. Hello, Philipp. Mr. Philipp,
Yeah,
how are you?
yeah. Buongiorno. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm so happy to have you with us because we are talking in our YouTube channel. We are talking about alternative history, no, of man, of humankind, and there are a lot of questions that sure we cannot have an answer, but we can try to talking about because I think that different point of views can maybe have a little more portrayed, a little more clear about what happened in our past. You come from Russia, so you are. I think that you can be the best point, fixed point to understand better what is Tartaria, the great of Tartaria, because in these last years we are listening a lot about this emperor, this kingdom. I don't know what is it actually, because we try to find a way to describe this big problem of our story, because actually now is a problem, no? And yeah, I would like to start with the question. When we talk about Tartaria, we actually talk about a big empire, a big kingdom that take all the world, no? Maybe 2000 or maybe more years ago, no? But some people say, hey, wait a moment. Tartaria is another story, is something different. You are changing the story, no? What do you think about this?
I think it's misinformation to call Tartaria some type of global uh, country or empire, right? So nobody was actually saying that ever. But some people on YouTube think that that's the case. I mean, they're promoting this idea that Tartaria was everywhere, Tartaria here, Tartaria there. I mean, everything Tartaria. But if you look closely to the documents that we are basing our narrative on, is actually some maps, some mentioning in the ancient encyclopedias, like 17th century, 18th century, and basically we see some depictions in the books where Tartars are depicted like ordinary Caucasian men. They don't look Asian, Mongolian, Moorish, or whatever people would be promoting. I don't know what they're doing on internet. What are they talking about actually? We should do particular review on each and everybody who is doing the information. But what I'm saying is actually Tartaria is just a geographical territorial brand. My research shows that Tartaria is related to certain words which make this word like tar. So this tar is actually related to three, and I posted this today on my Instagram, three different definitions. First one, let's see, I call it energy rotation, movement with spin. So like when you use word turn, for example, turbo, in Russian tormoz, which is a brake. Brake is a disc which is turning and it's pressing the disc. I mean, you can use whatever word, like torero in Spanish, like it's a bull which is, you know, going in
Yeah.
circles, rotating. So it's all rotation, it's all movement, it's spinning, it's going forward, it's an energy of spin, like torsion energy, which is well known. The energy that is spinning from the core of the earth, so called, and it's like a wireless energy that we can obtain actually. So all these words connected and could actually be the definition of the original Tartaria, because if they use this energy, that's probably the place where this energy was obtained and used. on a daily basis, on a routine basis. The second thing is ancient god's name, because we all know that Tara is the ancient god name, both in Russian Vedic knowledge and in Indian Vedic knowledge, so which is supposed to be one of the earliest officially recognized religions, Hinduism, I mean. And the third is, I would call it mining area or land known for mining. Because if you look around Tartaria, you find out that it's basically the waste land that is left by the mining corporation, huge mining corporation that were possessing this land and probably obtaining the goods from it, selling the goods from it. So it's all a little bit advanced story for some listeners that might seems to be. But you know, if you look closely, you find out that probably the most richest area in the world with the natural resources is the ex-Tartaria lands. They are the most, one of the most biggest resources of gas, oil, I don't know, you name it, metals, uranium, which is supposed to be used in, for example, nuclear production, or nuclear power plants, so-called, in weapons, so-called. I mean, without uranium, you won't have the world that we have today. So Kazakhstan and Russia are the biggest deposits of uranium right now in the world. So that's ex-Tartaria territory. And you can look further on each and every mineral, you find out that Tartaria has it. Gold, diamonds, whatever, you name it. I mean, everything's there. And Russia possesses this territory right now. And we know Russia has a bunch of natural resources. No sanctions can blackmail Russian economy, as we can see. For 2, 3 years, 8 years, nothing works. Russian economy is stable because they have every fucking thing, actually. So that's so that's my response to what Tartaria is from my point of view.
Yeah, that's so clear. So we can say that Tartarian is just a word, is not a place in some way. Like we can say Julio Cesar, no? Cesare, is not the name. Cesar is a name for a lot of person, you know. Like the name of the cities, like Rome, Venice. We don't have only one Rome. We don't have only one Venice or Naples, like Nuova Polis, no? We have a lot of places like this, and we cannot say that one of that is the only one. So Tartaria maybe something similar, is a name that we use for some special places, right?
Yeah, it's like when you go for, you know, for woods, you go to the forest, right? You find the wood chunks and, you know, you set the fire in the woods. When you go for minerals, you go to Tartaria. That's the best way to do that, because probably the deposits were open and the resources were clear and easy to get. So that's why they probably called it Tartaria, because we don't have the certain country name listed Tartaria. We have only flags of the Khan of Tartaria. We have small Tartaria, which is regional name. So I think it's just a big piece of land which was controlled by the proxy governments, which were probably controlled by somebody else, like a mining corporations, like we have today, like corporatocracy, right? We don't have democracy, we have the corporatocracy. Like EU is an upper government structure, which is not government actual national country. It's something above, it's proxy control of the territory. So if we would call Europe something in the future, we would call probably European Union, but that doesn't mean the country European Union was existing, right?
Right.
There wasn't such country. It's a union, like a Soviet Union, or I don't know. If you go further to United States of America, you find out that there's no country of United States of America. There's a union of several states, which have sovereignty, each and every one. But as a union, they call themselves United States of America, actually. So it's a corporate law. It's a maritime law. It's all based on English maritime law, and that's why we have all these definitions. So probably the Tartarian definition was also brought up by those who were creating this maritime law. And they called this area Tartaria just because it wasn't possessed by a single state. It was just a, union or corporate possessed land. And probably it was on the ruins of a bigger union. So in my research, I found out that the only empire that was existing actually in the Vedic knowledge, and it was called the empire because of the name is in the name of Perun. That's why Imperum. Perun is the top god in the Vedic mythology, in Russian Vedic mythology, in Slavic Vedic mythology. It's equivalent to Zeus in Greek mythology. Who was the top god in Jupiter in Roman classic mythology? Jupiter. Right?
Well, we have a lot of name for the same figure, I think, for the same god.
No, I mean Zeus. Zeus was equivalent to Jupiter, I think.
Yeah.
So in Russian mythology, in Slavic mythology, it was Perun. So they called this land, all the land, in the name of Perun, and it made up to be Imperum. What? In some countries they call it Imperium right now, also promoting some, some definition in these words, making this sound something like, Latin or something. But if you look closely to where the words come from, they all come from Sanskrit language, and everybody knows that. The Caucasian group of languages was emerging from the Caucasian Indo-European root, which is Sanskrit. And the most equivalent right now of what the Sanskrit research is saying is current modern Russian language. It's 70% equivalent to Sanskrit. So that's why I kind of compared all these words together, compared with English, compared with Serbian, which is also connected to Russian, and very most likely connected to Latin, because Illyrians, the northern Italians, they were also in possession of Italian kingdom. They were Venice, Genoa, Naples kingdom, and most of these people currently living in Milan, and they are not different from Serbians or Montenegrins or whatever. It's pretty much the same people, pretty much the same roots, the same genetics, and the same languages, which were only splitting up from a certain point, but have the same roots. And you find out several thousands of words are equivalent in most of the European languages. You just have to collect them all and find out. The British were good to do that. They had a bunch of dictionary reforms. They had encyclopedias, and so they know their language. They collected all the words from the very beginning. So, but most of the nations in Europe were not so good in that. So most of the languages just emerge, and the old words just get forget. So, you have any questions?
That's amazing. That's amazing, because I think that a lot of people don't look on that side of research, how and I think also that words can explain a lot if you're going to do this kind of connected link about all the words, similar words of the similar culture also, because you say that we have the same root actually. So
remember they were telling us that who found the Rome, right?
Yeah.
Remember that story, who was found in Rome, like a wolf that fed two brothers, right?
Yeah.
All the situation. But now we all find out that Etruscans were the ones who found the Rome, not the wolf, not the two kids, but Etruscans get the culture.
Yeah.
When you find out that Etruscans are not as well researched as any other nation, which is not even doesn't have any evidence. Etruscans has a bunch of evidence, but they're not well researched. Why is that, actually? When I asked that question to the historians, they say that because when you find out that the Etruscans and Italian called themselves Little Etruria, you find out that the big Etruria was currently at the place where Ukraine is situated. So, I mean, that's crazy. And some of these maps are still existing, some of them not even burned. You can find that Etruria was the land of some Slavic tribes, which are equivalent to Serbians, Etrurians, Macedonians, and Ukrainians. Ukrainians are pretty much the same as Russians. I mean, there's not a big difference in that language that they had. And so some people tried to read Etruscan language with this Russian decryption, and they found out some sense in their writings. I mean, the transcription was pretty good, but they cut their budgets and said that's not the way you're supposed to research. Do the official way. Don't go this way, go that way. And so that research was blocked. I don't know why. I don't know. But, you know, what I can say that people still think the Etruscans disappeared just like that. No, they didn't. They just dissolved in another branding of Romans. That's the same people, just like you call early Russians Muscovites, they didn't disappear, they became Russians. Or just you can call small little Russians, the Ukrainians, they also didn't disappear, they became Ukrainians. So that's the strategy of the parasites. They rebrand, rename, divide, and split the family nations to tell them they are not the family, they're enemies. And so they start fighting. And we're coming up to one of the next questions, by the way. But that's a strategy. That's what they do. That's why divide and conquer, not because they want to conquer something. They just divide to fight with the hands of the others, not themselves, right? That's the strategy.
I totally agree. Totally agree. But what I want to ask to you now is still about Tartarian situation. No, it is why it's coming out in this last 10 years or something similar. We never talk about, or I never heard about it, and why they fix the point, the focus in the wrong direction. I mean, why they talk about this big empire of the world, the global world? Why they did it?
I think they want to delegitimize the Russians currently possessing that territory. You know that nobody actually likes what Putin does or his government, right? Everybody is blaming everything on Putin. And Putin was one of the first guys who actually took these maps out, looked at them, read the name, read the brand. He was like, I've seen a bunch of times he was going in the museums and they've been showing these maps to him. And on some discussions, he even answered some questions in an alternative way, which was not mainstream. And I mean, he was like, you know, reminded of real alternative history that was actually existing. And I think there was a warning from the Windsors because they want to take all the gold that Romanovs transferred to the British banks. And actually, you don't have Romanovs relatives right now, any legitimate relatives to possess that gold, to claim that gold. All of them are just puppets. So I mean, nobody is even related as closely as British monarch line to the Romanovs. So that's a big pie. I think that's a big bounty, I would say. And I think they're after it. So they want to take it. They want to use it finally with all the interest for 100 years. I mean, that's a huge money. The second situation is the Federal Reserve System, which also was created with the help of Romanovs. They sent a big ship of gold in 1913, which also disappeared on the way around Gibraltar, if I'm not wrong about that. So also another situation. A Federal Reserve System was created with the help of Russians, Chinese, and some British banks. So if you take a look at this case, you also find out that they owe some big money to Romanovs. And who is Romanovs? Romanovs are right now the King of England, the Charles III. You can also call him Carlos because
Yeah.
he's Carlos. Actual name, he's Carlos. And I've been, breaking down the situation with this word Carl, Corona, and so on. It's all related to the ancient history, and has been programming the brand. Brand is a fire in some languages like German and so on. So brand is a firewall between the actual meaning of the word and what we see in public field. So that's why all brands, the corporations, they use this branding strategy. The same is royal families. They use branding on everything. So they brand the knowledge. They take this brand power, so nobody can pass through and find out the information. So, but who is leaking the information? Those who don't want Windsors to win. Those who want their heritage to be, I would say, rated and divided by everybody else, because they don't want them anymore. They want to get rid of Windsors. They want to get rid of British. They want to get rid of their, monopoly, I would say, in a world governance, because they affect and can, control most of the countries. You name just maybe several countries they can't control right now, but the rest of the world is pretty much under their influence. So although it seems to be that they don't have any control legally, they're just getting the money from the British taxpayers, and that's it. They don't influence anything. But when you take a look closely what they do, they still have possession of control on every aspect of our life, and they brand themselves and integrate themselves with such things like WWF, which is World Wildlife Forum.
Yeah.
Which is the second is World Economic Forum, where they they sit along with the guy who make this Great Reset thing. So they're everywhere. I mean, take a look. They in every big project they participate in everything. They still have control of most of the banks, which they have since 19th century. Some British thinkers were even admitting that you cannot find a British nobleman anymore in 19th century because everybody bought his title. So in 19th century, they had a total reset of the British intelligence and elites, replacing them with the new people who bought their titles for money, who had a bunch of experience in robbing the colonies like India and others. Made so many money there. So I mean, that's the situation. And if you look at Africa is the same. I mean,
sure.
You can only name the countries that they didn't influence in. The rest is just being robbed and ripped off, and nobody wants to pay back. Right now, we have some discussions about reparations for Black American, Afro-American slaves from the white people, making a tax in America for paying back the ex-slave offsprings who can prove that they had been enslaved and so on. So I mean, this is ridiculous, because if that come to the British legitimate order, they're gonna have to pay everybody, and they don't want that. Of course, they better ruin the system. They better switch the focus on the U.S. They better promote some maybe future civil war number 2 between so-called minorities which are becoming majority in 2030. Already estimated that the white population of America is going to be minority in 2030. So they only have to wait a couple of years. It's only maybe less chance for them to get back to power, but not everybody understands what's going to happen after, because America is going to be taken down as soon as they're going to start this civil conflict number 2. And what about Tartaria? Tartaria is the the 100% copy of what we have today, because Tartaria was supplying gas, and I found a bunch of Starfords chains which probably were connected with some gas pipelines, and Starfords itself could be established on the place where a gas well was obtained. I mean, they were pumping the gas out and growing the city around it because they had lighting, they had energy, they had, you know, some income, and so on. So they created this fort to protect it from maybe local people who probably were in big numbers, maybe wildlife, animals, wolves, bears, whatever, you know, you name it. And the city was growing. Each and every European city had this structure. I mean, small star fort, maybe citadel, you call it, and something growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and the hugest. Everything is connected to rivers, water supply routes. So some type of gas empire, some type of gas union was probably fighting the European civilization. I believe it was Holy Roman control civilization, which is right now transferred into the British control civilization, because every British monarch is related to German. They 100% Germans, everybody. Russians, British, French, they all Germans. They all relatives of some German bloodlines. Hohenzollerns, Gobstock, Hamburg, and so on. They plenty of guys there, plenty of families, plenty of, you know. They even changed to Windsors in the late 19th century, just because they knew they're gonna have a war soon with with Germans, and so they wanted to get rid of these German last names, you know. So what I'm trying to say is that Tartaria was a gas empire, was fighting them. Right now, Russia is possessing the same territory. It's also playing the role of the opposite, of the counterfeit of the Western civilization, along with China, which is also located near ex-Tartaria, and Iran, which is also ex-Tartaria. So, I mean, ex-Tartaria provinces are fighting the ex-Holy Roman Empire, and so on. So the situation is repeating, and I believe we're gonna see these emerging very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally clear now for me. I hope also for the people that continue to say that this Tartarian empire, it was something global and so much.
Well, they are based on the culture, on the architecture, and that's a fashion. That's not a 100% national, individual. I don't know how do you call it. Difference. No, that's not difference. This is culture. This is fashion. It's like you can probably find skyscrapers in most of the country's capitals, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's the same country. It's a corporate fashion. It's an architectural fashion which is transferred, and along with the cost of construction, could influence some architectures to choose this or that decision for construction something. But if we look at the case as a union, as a trade union, as a mining union that could possess each and every territory and control it, that makes another sense, because they could have built the buildings for themselves that could be left to that country where it was, you know, constructed right now. And that's why you have the same type of buildings, the same constructions that could be built in Japan, it could be built in Argentina, Chile, or whatever, which is like way far away. But that's only architecture. That's the aspect of architecture. There's another aspect. Yeah.
In fact, sorry. In an episode, we call it like global consciousness of architecture, or global consciousness of energies. Something similar. We didn't say that this is Tartarian Empire. We say that we have the same consciousness, just this.
Yeah, style.
Yeah,
style.
Yeah. That now maybe it's just forget. It's just don't use anymore, you know. But that's good to know.
I think that people just wanted to construct something for long term, right? And the cost of that, the efficiency of these buildings probably were in favor of constructing such thing, because you probably other some other shapes, some other styles wouldn't make the same for those who were paying the money, who were budgeting this. But if that was just a global union of trade and people were communicating, exchanging technologies, exchanging architecture styles, decisions, and the problems that could be actually while you construct this building, huge problems could be. But probably they had resources, probably they had this brick production developed enough, right? Because they used bricks everywhere. And that's the thing to talk about, because brick production is not that simple. It's not a primitive way to construct something. And that's another mistake by the officials that don't even research how brick production was developing, emerging in different parts of the world. How this or that construction could be actually constructed and explained with the technology of that time at a certain period, at a certain region. Like, you cannot construct huge construction without brick factories, glass factories, plenty of workers, transportation systems, cranes, and some other things like you can use mechanisms and so on. So it's not just the people in the mud carrying bricks in their hands, right? You're supposed to have some measurements, laser, I don't know, leveling and so on. It's just a whole bunch of information, and the historians completely ignore it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's really true. Yeah, I went back now from the Egypt, and we have a lot of how to say, yeah, not explained stuff around there. No, we're talking about the pyramid. We are talking about the temple. A lot of stuff that we don't know how they construct it. But yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's a good point to fix. Maybe if someone do this kind of research, we can connect with him or there. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
now a
very
small point
interesting.
about pyramids, by the way, because the official used to stick to the theory that it was produced by, constructed by slaves.
Yeah,
But when the alternative researchers started to slap them in their face with the new evidence of some technological marks on the blocks and so on, which is proven that the workers weren't just simple slaves. They're supposed to be qualified to do something like that. Probably had some machinery and maybe some instruments which are not simply the hammer and some I don't know copper copper stick. This is ridiculous. So right now they think they stick to the theory that it was produced in constructed in 20 years, but it was all qualified and hired workers, and they even placed them in some little town near this Giza complex, and saying that they were several shifts, like 3 times a year, a group of people were arriving at the site and started to change those that were working before. And that's how they, had this, timing question, which is like they supposed to be bringing some sort of like 20,000 blocks of something each and every month. And so when you calculate that for day and second and a minute, that's ridiculous numbers. So that's how they explain. Yeah, they were no slaves. They were not qualified workers. That's how they did this tremendous amount of work, tremendous amount of logistics and storing everything. I mean,
yeah,
but if
yeah,
you take a closer look to what they say, they actually are proving they were wrong for all these years, explaining us how it was constructed, and they're probably wrong right now in saying that it was qualified working force, labor force, because you cannot find any evidence of that actually. No archaeologists found any graves there of large number of people that supposed to die during this 20-year of construction. I mean, how many people would have been dead there? Who would have been burying them, or what they were doing? Actually, no records of that at all. I mean, there's so many questions. When you take a look at each explanation, you can criticize it and find out that it doesn't it's not relevant to the reality that we obtain and see right now.
Perfect. Let's go to the second point. When I start to study the Tartarian things, I finish inside the Russian researchers, and I found this name, no, that a lot of people talking about is Anatoly Fomenko, and the history about the new chronologies. No, what do you think about this?
Well, I sure respect their efforts to do something in that field, but if you research who was the founder of that idea, you find out that they are based on the research data that was produced by Isaac Newton from
Yeah, I knew it.
Britain.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some other guy who did the same in the late 19th century. And then some Russians also took on this research. I don't remember their last name, but I have a video on my channel which is called something about Fomenko. You can just Google Fomenko, you'll find maybe 2 or 3 videos on my channel, and one of them is about, and I totally break down who was after who in this idea and what they were bringing up. And yes, we have to give them credit for starting something like that, which is, you know, totally out of mainstream narrative. I mean, it's disrespectful to the historian mainstream community. And they were in the same institution. They were just making mathematics, and these guys were historians. I mean, and they argued, and they never gave a credit to anybody from that Fomenko group, and historians totally reject their research. So just so you know. The second thing is, nobody ever charged them with any, I would say, legal issue. Well, if you go against the mainstream, you sure gonna break their chain of budgeting. You sure gonna be bringing up questions that they are currently again funded for. So nobody attacked Fomenko and Nosovsky for that. No government agency ever arrested them for that. Quite opposite. They had 82 books printed. 82 books printed at the time that I was counting them. Right now it's probably even more. So a crazy printer is not a research, right? And
Yeah.
around only one single idea that the chronology is mixed up. So what they actually do, they're making money on creating alternative history line which they made up according to their mathematical data, which they are saying is based on the false historical chronology and their decryption of it via some mechanism or programs that they actually created for that. Well, I can only applaud them for that, but I cannot nor confirm nor object them in their 82 books because I don't have as much material, I don't have the program, I don't have the codes, so I cannot verify if they're completely wrong or not. All I know, they're praised by the government, they're not attacked by historians really, they have 82 books printed, they have money made, they have been interviewed a bunch of times, and they actually said a bunch of things in their interviews which support what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is they're a good wake-up call. You have to read, you have to check it, and you can't. That's simply the case with them. I cannot, you know, confirm or object, and that's the point. When I go to, for example, Tartaria topics or, I don't know, maps or something, we have the same sources as them. They also knew these sources. When I go to 19th century buildings and so on, they don't do it. Why is that? They're afraid of that. They don't want to research this. Just what we just talked about, the architecture similarities, the hidden hidden political groups, hidden unions, trade unions. They don't want to research that. They just stick on this chronology and interpretation of history. They don't want to explain anything. They don't want to touch any mud flood evidence. They don't want to touch any geopolitical thing. They're just, saying, like, this guy was wrongly named. His name was this. And if you read that, that doesn't make any sense, actually. Why did they know that? Because you don't have the reference they were using. I mean, if you're a teacher of somebody, like a student brought you this, scientific work, essay, you can read it, you can cross-check his evidence. Everything is marked. But when you have 82 books, just believe how many times you're gonna spend on proving anything. To whom? Basically, nobody's gonna listen to you. Their fans gonna be mad. Historians gonna be mad because you are, proving what is already proved to be wrong. So, and you are not objecting to the reality, actually, because you don't do anything on Tartaria, on real Tartaria, on real Empire of Rus, on real. Well, they touch Empire of Rus. They do it. They have this. They call it order. They call it Orda Rus, like Russian order.
Yeah.
But what is order? Order is, the governance, actually. So, well, they actually stick to the Bible. I think they are more like Christians than researchers. And that's the problem. They don't want to mess up with Bible. They don't want to mess up with religion. That's why they totally confirm everything was written in the Bible. And so that they put their research in the frame of Bible. They don't step out of this frame.
Sure.
That's my opinion on them.
Okay. And you're talking about mud flood, And I know that you are one of the most expert about this field. I would like to know actually what is this mud flood, because I noticed that it is in all the parts of the world actually, because a lot of civilization is building on top of this mud flood actually. So. What is it and how we can explain it?
Well, first of all, there's also misinterpretation of the situation, because some people think, just like with the case of Tartaria, that Tartaria was everywhere, mud flood was everywhere. No. Never. In some places, you don't even find any clay. So that totally dismantles and undermines those who saying that mud flood was everywhere. So that's first of all. You have to have like a huge wave of clay and mud moving on a very fast speed, just to cover simultaneously cover the whole plain, right? The whole world at the same time. That's impossible. Just as impossible as any other global flooding. Never happened before. Most of the stories of a great flood or great mud flood are just related to some regional, local events that are being misinterpreted to be global, worldwide.
It's like a leopard spot.
Yeah, because we probably can obtain and see some tsunamis in certain areas that can be interpreted as global great flood, and they can really wipe out the whole city, the whole land, the whole district, the whole region, right? So if we just stick to this reality and find out that certain events can happen, then we found out that this a reset cycle, and that's the point in this mud flood, because mud flood is a brand for this technology of getting rid of evidence of the reset. For example, why is that? Because clay is the perfect absorber of any disease, any biological or radiation or any waste. Basically, that's why the people are being buried in the ground, because at some point they were burned. But when you cannot burn somebody, you better hide the body in the clay because it's gonna absorb all these bacteria and no disease is gonna come out of that body, right, of that corpse. So basically, mud flood or clay could cover the area, including basements, first floors of the buildings, streets, and so on, along with people in it. Maybe dead people, maybe killed people, maybe poisoned people, who knows actually, because we have this stuff every time, every 100 or even more years, even less years, right? When a huge, unexplainable events and people started dying in large numbers, including wars, famines, epidemics, pandemics, and so on, right? So I think this is all related as a process of getting rid of the bodies and the evidence and the buildings themselves. This could cover up the whole story. When you leave the city like this, empty, completely empty. That's what we found in many pictures. When you see the early photographs, people say that back in the days they had long exposure and you have to wait for 30 seconds to take a picture from the photograph. But when you play with long exposure, you find out that each and every object moving during your filming leaves a shadow and a certain track. You see that track after you film it. So, but you don't see these tracks on the pictures, and so on the early pictures, on the early photographs. So I kind of debunk that theory that they just didn't film any people just because they had long exposure. Yes, they should. There's photographs of people just standing like this, no blur at all, people standing still for 30 seconds. No problem with that. But when you see the huge city panoramas like St. Petersburg, London, and Berlin, you don't see any people there. But at the same time, you see a horse standing and a cab standing there perfectly. And I'm saying to these people, you don't see this, right? You don't see this horse, you don't see this cab, you don't see this guy working here, right? But you see that it is a long exposure. You explain with long exposure. Otherwise, you can say that it's an early morning, nobody is here on the streets. No, it's not early morning because you see the shadows, casting the shadow of the midday, 12 o'clock or maybe 3 o'clock. So people supposed to be on the streets, huge cities with thousands and thousands of people supposed to have people on the streets, or at least huge shadows, blurs along these photographs. Nothing. So when you look at these photographs, you even find out that they all staged, completely staged, and people were getting ready to be filmed, probably dressed up, posing and so on. And that's completely true because officials also agree with that, because people had it as a rare option, which you have to pay for pretty big money. So probably not everybody can afford to be filmed or pictured back in the day. So
Sure.
But at the same time, you go to the history of photographs, you find out that at 1845, 1850, they already had exposure of 5 seconds on some photographs. You even have the calculation card for the exposure, which start with 5 seconds. And it's a big pain in the ass of the officials. They don't want to take a look at that. They don't want to look at the official history of the photographs in certain regions, certain cities. They don't want to look at the archives, where you definitely see a bunch of photographs also. And people are staging the photographs. I think people staging every photograph in the early 19th century. So you cannot use it as a proof of something that didn't exist, but you can surely see the building is standing, and sometimes, or maybe some ancient archaeological site is standing, maybe not excavated. My Instagram is full of these pictures. When you see the first photo and the current photo, you see that it was excavated big time, or reconstructed big time. So I mean, people making money on that, and
Sure.
probably,
Like
yeah,
today also. Yeah.
probably all these historical sites on the photographs um, were prepared for the future business in tourism and attraction of tourists in certain cities like Rome, which was excavated only during Mussolini. Like nobody knew it had all these historical sites there. There's tons of soil to be taken out and showed to people. No, nobody did it. Only in 20th century they started clearing up all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really actually understand why, but they had to do it because they had to have some heritage. They had to be show the Italians a great nation. They had to find all this archaeological evidence that we had this before. We've been great Roman civilization, and we along with Hitler gonna fight all these British and American. I don't know. I don't want to say this word. They probably said it. Yeah, something suckers. That's why. That's why. And I think also Hitler was making much research on this Annenberg institution, which is the heritage of the ancestors, if you translate it from German. But also N itself, AN, is pretty much connected to these biblical flood and the territory where it probably was performed. Recently, American researchers in Bulgaria found out that the sediment layers in the Black Sea show that Mediterranean Sea flooded the Black Sea area with the water via Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits,
Yeah.
so-called strait. And so maybe 3,000, 4,000 before Christ, the huge civilization existed around this place. And probably the center of European civilization was there. And probably this great flooding of the Black Sea basin and raising of the level of water caused this legend about Atlantis. Because if you find out what the An is the name of the ancient man. If you go to the Greek language, you find out also An is a man. Probably that's why man, because just modified An, if you take a look closely. Well, I had some videos about that. Also, Android is a android,
Yeah.
droid,
Sure.
computerized man. So the biological breeding of An could have emerged them to the modern man. So probably a little bit taller creatures, maybe 3, 4, 5 meter tall, existed before as ants, and they were the elites of this ancient world. They were bigger, stronger, faster, and probably smarter. But at a certain point, the small people took over. And now we see that these big guys totally disappeared. Although we have some architectural evidence that some big fellows existed not that long ago. And along with that, this historical narrative as a big guy, like, the big boss, big guy, and it's calling the elites bigger than we are in literal usage. I mean, that's not that like they are taller than us, right? But on some depictions in ancient Egypt, for example, if you've been there not that long ago, you can see big guys and small guys serving them, right?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Also, my Instagram plenty of that footage about giants, and so I think yes, giants did exist, and they were known as ants. And after this flooding, maybe something changed. Maybe these giants started to be used by the smaller people, which outsmarted them or maybe killed them. Because there's some type of narrative that in the medieval times, bunch of legends existed that the giants were killed every time. They were cannibals, giants, and so on. Yeah, in every European nation, you find out that a whole bunch of fairy tales about killing giants and exterminating giants. A bunch of depiction and images. Somebody killing giants, somebody dragging giant, the big giant, and so on. So I mean, that could be the time where giants were totally exterminated, and right now we don't see them. Although some people still become a little bit taller than the middle, the average human height, and could be even like 2.5 meters. So probably some genes dissolved in this human nation, I would say, in the human genetics.
So interesting, really so interesting. I would like to fix the point in the last things before to go in a little bit, if you want, sure, in the actuality and geopolitics stuff, because I have some questions also there. A lot of people talk about reset every time, reset. But what is for you this reset? Who did it? Why? I don't know. How many time in the world? What do you think about this?
Well, the 19th century reset was connected to the mud flood evidence, so probably it is also related some biological or some type of warfare that exterminated a bunch of people at certain areas, and they had to replace these people just to get the cities back under control and keep this thing ongoing, this parasitic way of governance. Because some people just don't want to work at all. They want to just get all the benefits. They want to make up some monetary or financial instruments just not to work at all. And some people supposed to work their ass every day, pay some fucking taxes, pay for annual inflation, pay for some crises that are appearing like those mushrooms under the rain. I mean, new tax this, new tax that, mask tax, I don't know, COVID passport you have to pay. You have to pay for PCR tests. You have to pay for gas prices. You have to pay for heating. You have to pay for, I don't know, you name it. Well, you have to pay for your property, man. That's a property tax, So that's not your property. If you pay for your property, actually, if you look at the definition of property, you own it. You don't have to pay for it, anybody, but you pay for it, and that means that you don't have any property, actually. They can take it away from you if you don't pay. That's not your property. It's your possession of the property, and that's what they're trying to implement right now. They want to get rid of our property rights. They don't want us to have this private property. They want us to only to lease and to pay. While we can pay, we can use. And if we cannot pay, we cannot use. That's why these resets erase those people they don't want to change. They call them conservatives. Conservatives. They are serving the Khan. And what is Khan? That's an ancient Russian word which is opposite to the law. This is ridiculous. Khan is opposite to the law. And what is Khan? Khan is circle. Inside of it, there's a deal between the people that they totally follow this deal as something holy, and they don't, disobey to something that is inside. That's why conspiracy, because Congress, they get inside, they decide what to do, and they follow this, right? And the guy who rides the horse was called Knight, on Knight, Knight, Knight. The guy who was controlling the district was called Knyaz in Russian. So also connected to horse. The guy who was riding the horse, who was riding the horse? The elites were riding the horse. The ordinary people were walking the mud, They had only feet and bare feet to walk on. So these guys on the horses, they had power and money. They were following their own laws. They call it con. That's an ancient word. So if you jump to that, but so these conservatives are the big pain in the ass because they know something that was back in the days that was good, and they remember it. They can tell to their kids. So the first thing you have to do is take their lives and make it shorter. So you have to make them work more and rest less, right? You have to them work more and eat less. You have to them work more and earn less. They have to tighten their belts and work. That's what they want us to do. And they don't want us to have any property. This is the current ongoing reset. I call it financial, monetary reset. During 2 years, the devaluation of the base currencies like dollar and euro are tremendous. You know that. The inflation is ongoing in every region, every country. Along with huge falling of bitcoins and other things, people losing money worldwide right now. Rich people, middle class people, they all lose money. I'm not even saying about the poor people. Poor people are, suffering. And I think that's the case because they want to switch the topic from this to war or some other, maybe the pandemic was plan A, now we have war plan B, because that didn't work as well as they were planning us to do. And some people disobeyed, these conservative people. They don't want to jet themselves, they don't want to die, they don't want to live shorter lives. They want to live as what they used to live, lives around 70, 80 years. They don't want to live 60, they don't want to live 50, they don't want to live 40. And that's what these people want us to do. They want us to live 40, 50 years, work around 30 years and die. And leave all that we have and obtain during lives to them, not to our kids or our families, because they don't want us to have families. They want us to be parent A, parent B, parent 1, parent 2. Make a kid, give that kid to the government and forget about it. That's what they want us to do. They want to get rid of families. They want to get rid of conservatives. They want to get rid of our savings. They want to get rid of our property. And they want to get rid of our lives because we are too boring and too expensive for them.
Yeah, that's not a good, a good view for the future, but that's what actually happened. So I agree also here with you. But yeah, let's jump in the geopolitical side if you want. I really like to ask you something because I know that you are studying also economics, no? That's what you do actually, no? So I would like to ask you two things. What do you think about quantum financial system? And what do you think about the war that happened now between Russia, Ukraine? What is the side of the American, Putin, Trump? There is a mess also there. So, what is your view?
Well, let's start from the back, from the from the finish of your question. Well, Russia was pretty good in good relations with the West since the broke of Soviet Union, right? It was like 10, 15 years of good relationships, constructing the pipelines, creating the jobs, all this trading. I mean, a bunch of Italian, German companies were opening their affiliates in Russia. The companies, big business was going. I mean, a whole bunch of companies. I mean, a lot of them. Now something's changed, right? Something's changed. And what changed is that the Chinese started to look at Russia as their territory, as their proxy. And I think they drag Putin in it. I think they work along with Rothschilds because Putin is closely related to some Rothschilds affiliated folks, and we had a lot of them in the government before. And so it's kind of a war of a proxy West, which is impersonated by the country of Ukraine, and a proxy China, which is impersonated by the country of Russia. Both of these countries are Slavic-based countries. Nobody wants any Slavic tribe to exist. So no China nor Europe wants us to live here on the surface of the world, because China wants Russia as a resource base, as their backyard. So does the United States, Britain, and European leaders, which are already not so independent as they used to be not that long ago. And so we have this operation of killing the Slavic tribes. Around 100,000 Ukrainians were already killed, probably around 50,000 Russians already killed and wounded. So that makes around 150,000 in the middle of Europe which are killed. I'm not even saying how many lives were ruined, how many kids are not gonna be born in the future. And that's the most active and brave male population of both countries. Who is going to protect these countries after the war is done? Those who ran away? No, we are not coming back to this madness. Nobody's gonna protect. So this is the process of dismantling of these two states. Probably they're gonna make Russia have a little win this time. Maybe in a couple of years the war's gonna be over, and we're gonna see the dismantling of what we know as Ukraine. Is gonna be a little bit smaller. Maybe it's gonna be swallowed by Poland. I don't know when it's gonna stop this time, but it's not gonna be Russian for sure. Nobody's gonna give it to Russia, because Russia is China in the future. Wait a couple of years, Putin's gone, and see you later. It's gonna be China. And so China knows it. They're like a wise, smart monkey waiting to see who is winning, the bear or the tiger in the valley. And they gonna watch the corpses of both of them floating by the river. So China is a big winner for sure, and probably the return of British influence is visible too, because British messed around Kazakhstan in January. They had a big coup there and big situation for Russia. Probably Russia lost that situation. We had a bigger problem right now. And we have a big problem in Ukraine in February, right after Kazakhstan case was over. They started it in Ukraine just because they knew they had to start something, because they have to switch the focus from the financial problems to this Russia problem, as they used to do in 2017, 18, 19, 2020, when they were doing Russia hoax in Trump case, right? They were dismantling Trump and getting rid of Trump, and that worked perfectly. So I think that's gonna work this time too, because every problem right now in Europe is blamed on Putin. So is in the United States. If you ask Biden, if you see what he is answering the journalist in his press conference, he's always blaming Putin, Putin's taxes, Putin what, Putin this, Putin. I mean, the cat has abandoned its kittens, and who is to blame? Mr. Putin. So, and the second question is about the resets. Well, I had a pretty good video with Russian vids. We had a discussion about San Francisco, and I think I probably presented all the types of resets that could be performed. This financial reset, that's Great Reset, as what they call it, is just being promoted for a longer period of time. I knew about it when I started my YouTube channel, and that's why I was using this term, because I knew they use this term, and I tend to use the terminology they use to define what they're doing. So That's closer to understanding. And some people just, hear reset as, some computer button, or I
Yeah.
don't know what they think about. But this is extermination of the previous system, getting rid of people, getting rid of conservatives, getting rid of laws and habits that we used to have before, getting rid of property. That's what is ongoing right now. And getting rid of the economy itself, because they don't want us to work as we used to do. They want us to work the other way. And how to make us work the other way is make us poor and willing to do whatever just to make some living. That's what they're planning to do right now.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to believe it, but yeah, if you go just around, just out, you can see it that happen. Yeah. Well, I asked to you before about the quantum financial system, because this is another kind of things that some people say, yeah, that's the solution. Some people say, no, this is the fucking problem. So, what is your opinion about it?
Well, the financial system itself was established by the um, so-called going into the shadow royalty. So, I mean, these royal families, they needed to gain control of the future in the past. So, how did they do it? They replaced their royal system of governance with these financial institutions, these central banks and private bank system, right? And if you return to Standard Chartered, for example, was a big London bank which was established by the Venice and Genoese bankster clans, which moved to Netherlands and created the revolution in Netherlands and in Britain. The Holland folks created revolution in Britain. Doesn't seem very, comprehensible, but it's true. The guys brought the money from the Venice into Holland, and they created some mini capitalism system there, intensifying it in a small territory because they had ports, they had a bunch of trade there, they had a bunch of money, wild money. People were bringing money and gold from the colonies. They had to buy something just to not to have empty ships to sail back, so they bought something. Like tulips was a big scam in the Netherlands, these flowers. And they had a bunch of scams with this flowers price. Some people got very, very broke back in the days with these tulips. That's a flower type that they, sell in Holland even now. But anyway, so this orange, they call it orange. Orange is the color of the Masons, by the way.
Yeah.
First Ukrainian revolution in 2004 was called Orange Revolution. Right now we have a revolution of dignity, which was emerging into this war situation. So the Masons are basically was the class that was promoted by this financial layer because they don't want to operate by themselves. And they hired this freelancer group, called them Masons, the professional units. Probably based on the previous professional and trading unions that were established before. So they had this cherry picking of certain persons and putting them in certain positions in so-called lodges. And so that implemented and backed the new financial slavery that the royal families made up for us in the future to serve them and pay these taxes, payments, all this based on taxes actually, is how create money and the interest out of a zero labor, right? So if you look at the financial centers, current financial centers are London, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore, and you can name a little bit more, but 70% of all transactions are occurring on London exchanges and London financial centers. So that actually proves that still all the roads lead not to Rome, but still they lead to London. And until this system is getting dismantled, we're gonna see what we see right now. This uncertainty, I would call it, because nobody knows where to invest to. You hear different new instruments coming up, like Apple, Google, Amazon, I don't know, Tesla, which are all just the big new scams. Then you find all this cryptocurrency popping up. They were made up to catch a bunch of criminals worldwide. They were made to catch secret agents, double agents who were creating. They created the system to catch and track and trace everybody, actually, who is using this money. But they sold this to the people as something you cannot track, you know. And when you hear the hearings, when the congressman asking those people, how do you track this or that guy, they're saying you can track them perfectly. You can find out who paid for who and for what exact situation, maybe terrorist attack or maybe pipeline explosion or whatever. So the cryptocurrency system was not to hide the payment information, was to reveal the payment information and to reveal all the possible opposition centers in the future. Those who have money to oppose, they can only fight you. They can only, you know, perform something that is irrelevant to the system you are promoting. So right now they get rid of these centers. They're getting rid of governments that are not quite obeying the rules. And this system is used to get them all broke, because nobody knows where to invest for sure, for 100% result as it used to be before. You could have invested in American papers and get like 2-3% for sure. Now you can't have this anymore because America has 10% inflation. So no interest right now can cover these expenses, yearly expenses. So big corporations right now are totally shocked with what's going on. And we're gonna have this slide down for several decades until this minority situation that I've been just covering before in the United States starts to take over the United States. I think these several years we're gonna have this slide of economy, and then a total collapse after some civil conflict will ignite in the United States, if not the conservatives take over this time and during this during this next election cycle. But anyway, both ways, even if they take over, they can be probably played like they used to be played with Trump, because he used to scream like, go to the Coliseum, let's go to the courts, let's fight these stolen votes. Yeah, everybody believed them. All these people were watching YouTube hearings of this or that case, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona. Everybody was hoping some election results could be changed. But no, nothing happened. All these people who were active, they all got arrested. They all became homestead terrorists. So just another future step for the future attack on these conservative community, because taking out these active members, these active pro-Trump activists, is a step for the future elections of 2022, when the Democrats are planning to get rid of Republican Party as it is, as an opposition for them for the future, because they don't want to give a single year of governance to Republicans anymore. They want to rule this country and make it China. They want to make America China. That's what they want to do.
Well, what can I say? We are at the end of this interview, because I take a lot of time and I want to really Want to thank you a lot for give me your time and give us your time. And it was a big pleasure, actually. I just would like, if you want, if you can send a message to Italian people from your side, to Italian research, and just a little message in the hand, if you want.
Well, you guys all know who is helping when the bad times come, right? Only friends. Not the friends, but friends, right? Friends doesn't help every time. Yeah. They may be close to Italy, but they are not helping you anymore. They are EU. They are totally possessing EU. France and Germany, you know that. You are the minor partner of them. So you might as well say to your government, say to your new elected government, what the hell are you guys doing? You're supposed to be national orientation government. And you're supposed to be, I don't know, Mussolini, affected ideology. You're supposed to be national, not international. That's what Russians want you to be. They want you to follow your own national interests, not the interests of these bureaucracies in unions, in, I don't know, G7, G5, G what the fuck ever. Guys, be yourself. You are good in production goods. Remember how good your trade was with Russia. I don't know, plenty of goods, cheese, I don't know, you name it. I mean, it's not only food, it's a bunch of cars. How many cars you've been selling to Russia? Look at you right now. You don't sell anything anymore. Who is selling? China selling. So China just took your money, guys, and you can't do anything because you only follow what EU says. So I think you should do what British people did and leave EU as soon as possible, because this corporation gonna take you down. They're not gonna bring you up. You know your neighbors. What the hell else do you need to know? Some people in Brussels tell you what to do. Think about it. Used to be great. Like everybody else used to be great. And now we are following some crazy mad lady who doesn't even know what the hell she's talking about. She's not even a specialist in anything except women's pussies, actually. So I don't know what the hell is going on. Who is picking these people, actually? Look at the EU leaders. They're totally stupid. They don't know any fucking thing. They don't even know how economy works. And you follow everything they say. Think about it. Be yourself. That's what we Russians want from you. And the rest of the world just needs you. The Italians, the Italian people, they don't need European Union people. They need Italian, Austrian, German, French, because we all understand each other. We can work it out. These governments are just, corporate puppets. All they do is to take our money, take our property, and leave us broke as a joke. That's what I'm saying.
Well, thank you very much, very, very much. I would like to advise to all the people that want to visit the website of Philipp on the channel YouTube. You can see Philipp Druzhinin. I hope I say it good. And you can see a lot of things that we talking today, like mud flood, like geopolitical stuff, and a lot of things that Mr. Philipp studied from a long time actually. So I advise to you to visit this website and subscribe and follow maybe the next interviews that we can do together if you want, Philipp.
Yeah, why not? If you have any more questions, contact me as soon as possible. We can schedule one more chat.
Thank you so much, and have a good day.
Yeah, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.